Coming up tonight in the cruise view, find out what the captain thinks of his brand new ship, take a look at the coastal kitchen, find out what's on board for the kids, and we take a look back at some of the issues from this first sailing. It's all coming up, so let's set sail. Welcome to day 8 of the cruise view from on board the Quantum of the Seas. Once again, I am Picone, and today we're going to start off with the top stories again. And once again, the main one is this really an inaugural? And the answer is, once again, no. Tonight was the final night, and we once again did not receive anything. The term inaugural came up a few times today during the captain's corner, but mainly to complain about the fact that this was not an inaugural and for them to make up excuses on it being an inaugural. So we're now at the end of the sailing, still nothing to make it an inaugural, so at this point it's pretty much declared not an inaugural sailing anymore. But the rest of the issues I mentioned previously are going to be discussed on day 8, which is today. Save until the end of the episode just so you can get through some of the more important stuff for today first. So we'll start off with the current location, and of course this was the last day of the sailing, so we'll take a look back at where we went up to this point. So we started off with Cape Liberty, New Jersey on November 23rd. We then set sail for 2 days at sea down to Port Canaveral, Florida before moving on to Nassau, Bahamas. We then tried to take a stop at Coco Cay, Bahamas, but ultimately ended up with another sea day. And then yesterday was a sea day, along with today, another day at sea with our noontime location at 36 degrees and 56 minutes north by 74 degrees and 19 minutes west. And at the time, the closest land was the entrance to Chesapeake Bay, about 78 miles away. The weather for today, we had a sunrise at 6:43 a.m. and a beautiful sunset at 4:34 p.m. Skies were completely clear for the day, so it was a great sunset. You could see the full sun all the way until it disappeared on the horizon. We had a high of 62 degrees and wind speed of roughly 20 knots, and the winds were going with the ship, so you actually felt the winds blowing from the back of the ship because we were going slower than the actual wind speeds for today, so it didn't cancel out unfortunately, but it did still have fairly nice weather for the day. Especially being this far north, it was a particularly warm day once again. And as for the compass summary, today was the last day of the sailing, so basically anything that was left for the sailing to get in had to be done today. Originally there was a showing of Penguins of Madagascar, the big premiere for on board the ship. The new DreamWorks film was scheduled for 10 p.m. tonight, which is a bit late for a children's movie, so they changed at the last minute, made 11:30 this morning, which is more family friendly, and then that took place in the theater, which the main reason for the different timing was the fact that there was Sonic Odyssey practice, all sorts of rehearsals all cruise along, which I'll mention again in a moment. But it was full 3D movie, nice high quality 3D glasses, much nicer than what the local theaters usually offer. So it was my first 3D movie on board a Royal Caribbean ship, so it was nice to see that. And then at 1 p.m. today was the Captain's Corner, one of the major events that everyone watches for each week, and particularly on the new ships like this, where there are a lot of interesting questions and things to hear about. And today it took place in 270, just like the 270 technology tour yesterday. So they're certainly using that for a lot of their little gathering events, things like that. Talks, discussion events, and it seemed to fit the style of it, it worked for the most part. A few of the big questions that came up, of course, were the question of China. What happens to Quantum when she goes to China? What changes? What stays?
The music hall, or a portion of the music hall, is going to be converted into some gaming space. There's going to be a fair amount of retail space that's built out. What we've learned about the Asian marketplace is the only thing that they enjoy more than gaming is shopping. So we're putting more of both of those things. We're going to change the Windjammer fairly significantly, having a lot more Asian-style cuisine. Believe it or not, Uzumi will not be well received in the Asian marketplace because it's much more of a cosmopolitan style of sushi than what that market would want. We're going to convert Johnny Rockets into Panda Express, a noodle shop. So there are a lot of different things really to try and line up the choices for gaming and retail, as well as the food choices that's going to be more suited to that marketplace.
And of course, the validity of the inaugural sailing claim came up more than one time. The main excuse really that came from the team seemed to be that the term inaugural can mean anything and nobody really promised anything special for it, which doesn't really seem like a very good excuse when everybody in Miami and the booking office have been claiming special festivities all the way up till today. But the one surprise was that there really wasn't any dynamic dining complaints. The closest was one single comment on whether the people in Miami ever think of the guests before making decisions. But nobody specifically called out dynamic dining, one of the things that I think most had expected to happen, but it seemed like most of the anger at this point was purely focused on the fact that it was an inaugural sailing, not treated as an inaugural sailing. Following the event, while talking to Jimmy Rhodes, he did mention that part of the reason the compass was lacking so severely this sailing was that he did not have his full venue roster. The Royal Theater was pretty much off limits to him the entire sailing as a result of Sonic Odyssey rehearsals taking place every day as well as every night. So all the events that would have taken place in there could not happen. He's already stated that next sailing that won't be the case, and they'll be able to bring some of the usual events back. They'll have the Love and Marriage game show, some of the other big ones that were lost. So hopefully next sailing we'll have a much fuller compass, more traditional looking compass. But he did say no quest will ever take place on board the Quantum of the Seas, and that is due to the actual design of the ship. The 270 venue is required to stay as a living room at all times, so they really can't make that over for the quest, and it's a bit dangerous with all the stairs and other objects in the way. Music hall is far too small to operate as the venue for the quest, and the theater has been used in the past. I remember it being used on the Nordic Empress, and while it somewhat worked, it really wasn't very conducive to that kind of game show, so that won't be used for it. So that only leaves the Seaplex, which, while a perfect venue for the quest, unfortunately does not have any kind of seating around it, so there's no way for people to watch, so that can't be used for the quest. So as a result, this will be the first ship in the fleet to not host the quest anymore. And hopefully that's not a plan for the future, because I'm pretty sure there would be a lot of heavy feedback if they remove that from other ships. But it does sound like it's purely circumstantial with this Quantum class and not something that was planned for to remove it. But going on with the day then, they did have the Battle of the Sexes. That took place at 8:45, and that was in Music Hall. In the past, we've seen the Battle of the Sexes take on multiple forms. That's one of those games that really has no standard format, though this time it was very similar to what we saw on board the Grandeur of the Seas last sailing. They had one extra round of karaoke that was thrown in that wasn't done on the Grandeur, but for the most part it was the same style of show that we saw there. And if you didn't watch the cruise view from on board the Grandeur, essentially they picked 5 women, 5 men right off the bat from the theater, had them act as teams, and went through a series of mini challenges, awarding points with each round and each challenge that was accomplished, until ultimately one gender becomes the victor over the other. And today, the men once again won. In the past several nights, they've tried to do game shows, but they've always had very small crowds. Tonight's was an hour later. The crowd was still small, however, I think partly because not only did you have dinner shows, things like that to compete with, you also had people packing for their luggage. While I'm not leaving the ship, the majority of the ship is, which meant they had other things to get accomplished during that time period. So it still was a poor choice of times. Hopefully next sailing, the Royal Theater's open. Maybe that'll open things up to them a little more, 'cause those shows definitely work better when held at 11 o'clock at night when everybody's sort of free and can participate in it. But at that time, of course, music hall is fairly busy as the club on board. So that about does it for the compasses of this first sailing, the supposed inaugural sailing of the Quantum of the Seas. So next up is the Daily Dine, and today we're going to take a look at Coastal Kitchen.
Hello, my name is Marko Misic. I am one of the waiters from the Coastal Kitchen. Coastal Kitchen is one of 18 venues on Quantum of the Seas. We are located on deck 14 on the starboard side of the Windjammer. Coastal Kitchen, basically its influence between Californian and Mediterranean coast. So all the things that are good from these two parts of the world we put in one venue and we make very nice restaurant. Regarding the menu, we are serving breakfast, lunch and dinner here, open during the whole day. In port days, we are closed for lunch. Regarding the menu, we have some many new dishes. Beef, salmon, fisherman stew, scallops, all of them are new and brand new in the fleet way of preparing and serving. Regarding the breakfast, it's traditional breakfast from Royal Caribbean, and lunch is short version of a dinner, so we have so many salads like entree and something like that. Coastal Kitchen venue is exclusively made for our Grand Suites and above guests, owner of them, and Pinnacle members.
And of course, Coastal Kitchen is one of those new venues that premiered on board the Quantum of the Seas, but it's slowly going to be expanding to the rest of the fleet, starting with the Oasis of the Seas, which has already received it. And I'm sure Allure will get it, and all the new Oasis builds, and eventually you'll likely see it start popping up on even some of the older ships as they go into renovations in the future, just like we saw many of those Oasis class features being brought to the smaller vessels in the past. So next up is the venue, and tonight we're going to take a look at some of the kids' activities with Adventure Ocean.
Alright, welcome ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jonathan Moore. I come all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, and I am the Assistant Adventure Ocean Manager here on the beautiful Quantum of the Seas. Right now, as you can see, we are in front of Adventure Ocean, which is the kids club all the way from children 6 months up to 11 years old. As well, we have our teen program from 12 years to 17 years old. We're on deck 11 all the way forward, and we're going to give you a little tour and tell you what our program is all about. So if you want to follow me this way, go ahead and start coming right through here. This is our main entrance. As you can tell, here on the Quantum of the Seas, we have 2 levels for our 6 months to 11 years old. It starts below the ocean is the theme, so that is why we're underwater right now with the blue background. We have our amazing friends from DreamWorks here on the wall if you want to keep coming this way. On the lower level, we have 2 rooms. We have our Royal Babies and Tots nurseries. That's from the 6 months all the way up to 36 months, 3 years old. It's a complete drop-off program. The parents can come, leave their babies with us for a while, and then afterwards they can go do whatever they want. They can feel perfectly comfortable as all of our staff is nursery trained in Miami, and they've worked with babies for many, many years. They know exactly what's going on. So we want to come this way. We can get a quick peek of where the rooms are exactly. As well, we have our Aquanauts. They are our next age group up. They are the 3-year-olds to 5-year-olds. They will be right here on the left-hand side. You can kind of see the entrance to the room. We do all sorts of stuff. We have a science program, which we do with all age groups. We do arts constantly with the younger ones. We do quiet games, we do active games, we keep the kids running around, and the main thing is we keep them safe. That's our number one purpose here on board, not only the Quantum of the Seas, but for Royal Caribbean. Safety and security is the number one job, and secondly is the entertainment and for the children to have fun. So they come in here, the parents bring the kids with them, they drop them off, they go do what they want, we keep them in the rooms, and they just have a blast. We do, like I say, we do active games, we keep them running around, we wear them out, we tire them out, so when the parents come back, they pick them up and maybe the kids will be ready for bed if it's the evening. If it's during the day, they can go have some lunch with them, bring them back, and then we'll play more games. So yeah, we play all sorts of the fun games, we run around, we keep them active, we keep them motion, and then we also have, every night we have a big session for a big theme for each session. So we'll do a pajama party where we watch a movie, kind of relax. We have a sports night where we'll take the older kids over to Seaplex, play all sorts of sports games there. We do a little pirate parade. We do a rock and roll night, keep them dancing, keep them active, and just, like I keep saying, we have all sorts of fun here. It's good times, and the kids never want to leave. So for the Royals and Baby Tots, we're open starting at 9 a.m. all the way till midnight. So the kids can have, the parents have the opportunity to drop them off, go have a nice dinner, go out to the rocks at the pool, and just have their own free time. For the 3 to 11-year-olds, we break it up into 3 main sessions. We're open from 9 a.m. to noon, 2 p.m. to 5, and 7 p.m. to 10. And then after 10 p.m., we have a thing called the Late Night Party Zone, which is only $7 an hour, and it goes all the way till 2 a.m. every night. And this is where we play our famous Gagaball tournaments, where the children have opportunities to win medals. We have other theme nights like we have a pizza party one night. We'll do all sorts of good stuff to keep the kids occupied while their parents are out enjoying the rest of the ship, because obviously we know there's plenty to do here on the Quantum of the Seas. If we want to come this way, on the board we also have straight ahead the room called Play. Now this is a great room to have because it's for parents to bring their children of all ages anytime they want. If they don't want to actually drop off, they can come in anytime they want and utilize our space. We have toys set out, we have books there to read, and they can just come and interact with the kids and play with the kids. And this is open from when Adventure Ocean opens at 9 a.m. to approximately 10 p.m., but if we're open later, then we'll leave Play open later as them for a while. So as I said, here's Play, the open area for parents and children to come. You can see we got all the toys out, we got little ones, we got the books in the corner here. So they can come anytime they want through our open hours, bring their own children to play and have a good time with them. Alright, and now we've gone upstairs. As I said earlier, the envision on the Quantum of the Seas is to have 2 levels. Downstairs in the blue was we were underwater, and up here we are above water. So right now we're on the beach, we're in the sand. You can see it's a much brighter feel. And this is where we have the 3 rooms. We have our Explorers, which are the 6 to 8-year-olds, our Voyagers, the 9 to 11s, and our Adventure Science Lab, where we do all our sciences and good times there. So this was a staircase from Play all the way up. Right around the corner here, you can see the entrance to our 6 to 8s, the Explorers. This is one of the bigger rooms we have on board. It's fantastic here. There's lots going on in that room. So we have the older kids, it's much more active. We play some dodgeball, we play Gagaball, we play our crazy tag. All of our big, very famous games. Many of the kids know. If not, they'll learn them, they will love them, and they'll come back and play all the time. If we want to come around here, we can go in our science lab in our Voyager room. Right here we have our Adventure Science Lab. We have a great partnership with the company High Touch High Tech, and they work together to make us kid-friendly sciences. So the kids don't realize they're learning, but they really are. At the same time, they're having a great time because they're fun, they're interactive, and they usually get to take something home. We'll do things like we'll make space mud, we'll make blow mud, we blow up the volcano, the classic. But then for the little ones, we also teach them about bugs, and we teach them about germs, and all the important things they need to know growing up, but also that they really enjoy and have a good time with. And then finally, right over here is our last room. It's the Voyager room. It's the oldest age group we have in Adventure Ocean. It's the 9 to 11-year-olds. And this is where the programming is very similar to the 6 to 8. So we do the Gagaball, Dodgeball, Crazy Tag, everything. However, it's just a little older group, so it's a little even more intense. This room is always active. It's always running around. There's very little quiet time, but every now and then they all need it. So we do the pajama night in here as well. We do the sports night. Everything the kids enjoy and they really like. Like I say, this is Adventure Ocean. Our main priority is the safety security. All of us who work here have a 4-year college degree and have worked with children for many, many years before we've been on cruise ships. Afterwards is when we have the fun. So we go out, we play games, we get to act like kids. That's why I do the job. I come to work every day with a smile on my face, and I leave with a bigger smile. I'm running around, I'm going crazy, but I get to act like I'm a nice kid again, and it's just always good times. So I highly recommend you bring your kids here. They'll come the first time, and then they'll be begging to come the rest of the cruise. Alright guys, welcome here. This is the living room. So now we've made it all the way to the back of the ship. We are on deck 14, and this is the area for the teenagers. One of our 2 rooms. This is the living room. The teenagers on board are from 12 to 17 years old, and this is where we do most of our activities. They can come here anytime they want, anytime we're open, and just hang out, relax, or we do activities every hour on the hour from 10 a.m. all the way till 6 p.m., and then once again from 8 p.m. until about 1 a.m. So we keep them really active. We give them scavenger hunts to go around. We give them all sorts of, we have board games on the side. We got books over here. We got plenty of TVs around the corner. You can see our little Xbox corner here as well. We got 3 TVs hooked up so they can come play that. We have a karaoke hooked up to the big TV. We got our foosball tables. And if the teens, we know they're not always the most active, but we love them to death. We have our couches right over here, where they're more able to just sit down, relax, and make new friends, talk all they want throughout the cruise. And like I say, this room is open anytime throughout the day for them to come into, relax, hang out, and do the activities we run. It's kind of like Adventure Ocean. Once they come and do a couple activities, they'll be here the entire cruise. Their parents won't see them the entire time. We will. We have a great time with them. It's good fun, so encourage them to come to the living room. Alright everybody, this is our last stop here on the Quantum of the Seas for the Kids Club. We are now up on deck 15 in the back, right above the living room, and this is Fuel. This is our disco for the teenagers, once again the 12 to 17 year olds. We hold a party in here every night for them, starting on day 1. We do the welcome aboard parties. We have our famous Dusk, which is a glow party, so they wear their white, they glow. We got glow sticks. We have a warehouse, which is more of a kind of an underground theme. And then here on the Quantum, we've brought a few new parties out that the other fleet hasn't seen yet. So we have a tacky tourist party, we got a 90s, we do all sorts of good ones every single night, no matter if it's a 3-night cruise, if it's a 12-night, there's a party up here, different party every night. They come here, they dance the night away, the sound is fantastic. As you can see, we got a couple TVs here, so we can play some music videos in the background while they're playing. We have posters going on for the themes. We got a couple couches for them to sit down, but once again, since this is the party atmosphere, we don't want them sitting. They're up dancing. We got our DJ booth right behind us here, where the teen staff will be in charge. And even about once a cruise, we're lucky enough to have the Scratch DJ on board come and actually host a party for them, so that way they get a nice feel and some little better DJing skills, because that's, you know, Scratch DJ is always a little better than the youth staff, but we do what we can. We have a good time. We play nothing but the kid-friendly music. We have all the new music that they like to listen to, and we keep them dancing until at least 1 a.m., sometimes 2:30 in the morning every night here. This as well is part of Fuel. This is our back area. As you can see, we have our Coca-Cola freestyle machine here, so all the children with the Coke package, if they want to take a break from dancing, come back here, grab a nice drink, cool off, relax for a little bit. Once again, we got the TVs, so we have the music videos playing. The sound is still fantastic, so after they're done getting a drink, relaxing, calming down, they come back to the dance floor and keep on dancing until the wee hours of the morning.
So now let's take a moment to look back and review this sailing, and the first thing that's important to note is that the actual guest capacity on board at this moment is 3,557 with a crew of 1,646. So that's roughly 2 passengers per crew member on board, which is a very low ratio for a ship, especially one this size and mass market. And the capacity of the ship is actually listed as 4,180 for double capacity or 4,905 for max capacity. So that is roughly 700 to 1,300 fewer passengers than this ship is designed to handle. And the listed crew capacity that Royal Caribbean provides is only at 1,500. So that's roughly 150 more crew members than she's designed to have. So at this moment at least, she is very well staffed to handle what she has. So that partly explains why we do have such great service. There really haven't been any issues with the crew across the board, from the sports staff, the cruise director staff, the dining staff. All the crew on board have been excellent. And you kind of expect that from those numbers, but it really shows where some of these issues lie, as I'm now going to go through some of the issues we had during the sailing, most of which still exist. The one major one was the internet kept going in and out. It seemed to be a bigger issue while we're up north. It was a huge issue at the start of the sailing. Didn't hear much while we're down in the islands, but now it is cropping up again as we're heading north. And it may be an issue that those satellites that O3B has are right along the equator. It caused an issue for Southampton, where in the transatlantic they didn't have any satellites. And perhaps the issue is still there in New York, where they're supposed to have it, but doesn't quite seem to be as strong a signal as they were supposed to be getting. And a lot of these issues are directly tied to bandwidth issues, such as with the Rural IQ app, the Messenger app keeps dropping out. You can't send messages, receive messages, which is directly linked to the fact that you don't have internet, because those have to go through Miami every time you send one. The phone still does not work for me, at least some people it does. Mine has never functioned. I simply get an unavailable message every time I try to call. That has been going on since day one, still not resolved. And that one is not an O3B issue, that is purely the app. The calendar has not worked for anybody in the app, but it did start working today on day 8. And now that it loads, you can see it sort of loads from your current moment on. So that once again looks like it may be a bandwidth issue, that their speeds are too slow to actually download the entire list of items, and maybe the app has some kind of timeout function built in where it's just canceling the request and leaving you waiting forever. But it did load today when there was only one day to load in it. And then we're also seeing the duplicate bookings are back. So if you booked the Quantum of the Seas dining the day that it opened up, I'm sure you made changes since then, and you likely saw your dining reservation show up once, twice, maybe even 3 times, depends on how many times you change it, as the system fails to cancel those reservations. And those were resolved on land. They did not show up anymore, but on board, every one of those shows up right in your cruise planner, which makes it very confusing and difficult to know which is the valid dining time that you have reserved. Luckily, dining has worked very smoothly. The dynamic dining, I think to many people's surprise, was one of the least troublesome parts of the ship. While the technology everywhere seemed to fail, you really could just walk up and get in. It wasn't an issue at all. Maybe the lack of guests on board the sailing helped that, but for the most part that wasn't a problem. It was purely the technology. And going along with those duplicate bookings, there are also random bookings showing up. For instance, one day I had a 5:45 dinner reservation, and suddenly at some point a 5:52 one was added, which we couldn't even book off of those 15-minute intervals. So I'm not even sure how a 5:52 booking got into there, but it randomly showed up one day. And the app was originally supposed to be the compass, with the compass not even offered unless requested, and compass simply does not exist in the app. I doubt that'll be on the 11 night. That sounds like an actual app issue that'll come in the future. The one surprising thing though is that while dining and entertainment show up, your sports activities don't show up in your calendar at all. So when they give you those activity times that you sign up for, such as Ripcord, you do then have to go in and manually add it as an item on your calendar if you want to see it with everything else. But the problem is you can only do that on the full calendar page, which you cannot see until the last day of your cruise. So that really makes it difficult to manage your different activities in the sports area. The photo system as a whole has been a mess since the start. The system seems very slow. It doesn't seem like the kind of system I'd be running from Miami, so I'm not sure what's causing the slowness, if they just don't have enough servers on board to handle it. But it's also run into issues with photos simply disappearing. Without the physical copies, your only solution is the actual digital system. And when you go into there, it sets up every person individually, so if one person manages your photos, the next person does not have that stuff anymore. And when you often log in, you may run into an issue where there are no photos displayed at all. they seem to refresh the system periodically, and when that happens, all photos disappear from your account. At that time, you may have photos that are deleted, lost entirely, or ones that just never show up. So you have to go through thousands and thousands of photos to manually add them, but the next time it goes to a refresh, those manually added photos could once again disappear. And then, along with all of the actual issues with their digital photo system, the new quantum setup itself has more limitations to it. You can only have an 8x10 photo rather than all the different options before. And oddly, they do not have ship photos available. Their excuse seems to be they'd never flew a helicopter, which I know is not true, as I'm sure everybody watching knows isn't true, since we saw the footage, we saw the drones, we saw everything from Hamburg to Bremerhaven. We saw everything when it pulled into New York. I was there when she pulled into New York. Saw the helicopter flying around, so no idea how they can claim they haven't gotten a helicopter up to take photos of the ship. And of course, when the Oasis set sail on that first sailing, I know I have a photo, and it's clearly a photo from the sea trials. You can see some of the construction still going on the ship, but they had photos available that went out. But they're still charging full price for those folios without a ship photo. So that's a very poor and really doesn't come off looking very well for them as a whole. Then today, as mentioned earlier in the sailing, the TV system was down for the first 2 days, and that once again came back again. We no longer can get into any of our account summaries, basically any functionality of the TV system, which once again is likely related to that bandwidth, since it seems to happen when we go north. Along with the digital signboards, which worked fine the entire time we're in the Bahamas, are now becoming troublesome again. So there's clearly some O3B satellite issue when we get north towards New York that just causes the wave of failures across this ship. And with how reliant the Quantum is on these new technology systems, it's something that's not going to be fixed anytime soon unless they fix the satellites. But beyond some of those digital internet issues, there have also been periodic entertainment check-in system issues. They've handled them to different degrees of success. One day I had where the guy went to check my band, sent me through, said it checked, I watched the screen, it clearly never even was logged in because it wasn't functional, they just didn't say it. Another time, they, as I mentioned previously, they did everything by the cabin numbers, which just caused a huge backlog and all sorts of issues. So they certainly need to come up with some better backup plans for the entertainment check-in system, or hold people until they can get it fixed and then let them in later, because currently neither of their processes seem to work for the backups. But if it does work and they can just quickly scan your WOW band, let you in, it is a pretty smooth process getting into the venues. So that is the one positive thing, especially with the WOW bands. Not fumbling for those cards really saves time. But beyond technology, there have also been very odd issues with the ice cream machines that I really can't explain. They only chose to put 2 ice cream machines, stick them both right in the same spot in the pool deck. One of them was broken the entire time. The secondary one worked for about the first 2 days and then has been broken until today. So that's a very unusual thing to have 2 ice cream machines and neither functional. Of course, the lack of activities, which I mentioned before, will be resolved next sailing. That was due to Sonic Odyssey, right back there down the hall, being rehearsed in the Royal Theater and taking out pretty much all the activities that were supposed to take place in there. So next sailing, that should be fixed. And then, of course, North Star was a problem the whole sailing. It operated about a little less than half the time that it was supposed to. When it did operate, it often ran into issues. No real reason behind that. It seemed to be a different issue every time. One excuse was replacement of that chip that was mentioned on the transatlantic. Also issues with the hydraulic system. The oddest issue that I was told was an issue with the software system, where the software didn't function, so they had to revert to an old version of the software and then get special approval to run it because it doesn't follow all the safety standards. So a lot of excuses, not really sure what the valid reason is, but it's clearly not a cold versus warm, because we had warm days, it was still a problem. We had cold days, it was a problem. Day, night, there really was no common factor, just North Star and not working. So I hope it's fixed next sailing, but at this point I really don't have much hope for it, since it doesn't have that common factor. There's nothing to say it's going to work or not work any day. There's just a lot of random things. It's probably a little too complicated, and then you have it in a moving environment. It's just pushing the system past its limits, and it keeps hitting that breaking point, it seems like. And then, of course, the biggest issue, the fact that it was not an inaugural, sold as an inaugural. Still don't quite understand how they can justify this one. It's basically, best way to think of it is, you book a cruise to Bermuda, you get on board, find out there's a hurricane headed there, they head to Canada, so you're expecting warm, sunny beaches, you get cold sightseeing tours instead. Essentially what we got, we were booked an 8-night inaugural sailing, and instead we got an 8-night Bahamas sailing. The difference is, it wasn't Mother Nature, it wasn't unplanned for, it was a decision Royal Caribbean made a month or so before booking even opened, and chose not to inform anybody until the last day of the sailings. So clearly those circumstances are not the same, but it doesn't seem like anyone at Royal Caribbean really cares about that, or really anybody on this ship, as we've seen from the transatlantic and all the other sailings up to this point, where there have been tons of problems, yet no real executives have stepped forward to take responsibility beyond praising Bill Martin and the technology team that have really utterly failed this ship and the company. I don't see how they can ever claim anything but failure from his team when nothing on board the ship works. It's technology related. They built the supposed smart ship, and it's not had anything working. So we'll see next sailing. Hopefully things work, things turn out a little better, but this first sailing was just a mess when it came to technology, which was the premise of almost every functionality of it. So that really is not a good sign. But luckily, you didn't hear much positives, because I'm not planning to review this ship and all the features of it until the end of the full 19 nights. But the ship is solid. The crew's solid, the ship's solid, everything about it works. But everything's relying on technology that fails. And you can upgrade technology, you can fix technology, hopefully 6 months, but more likely I would expect a year or so. These bugs will be gone. Hopefully they won't come out with version 2, because I'm sure that'll just put us back in the same place. But hopefully things will work, because the ship functions. You just got to get that software up to the same level as the rest of the cruise, and you'll have an incredible product. So that about wraps up this first sailing of the theCruiseView on board the inaugural sailing of the Quantum of the Seas, and we'll see how things go starting tomorrow with the turnaround day back in Cape Liberty as we start the 11-night Southern Caribbean sailing, which hopefully will have much warmer, nicer weather, and we already know, according to Jimmy Rhodes, we'll have a much fuller cruise compass, more what we would normally expect. And of course, it's not an inaugural, it's just a Southern Caribbean sailing, so we don't have that overbearing negative involved in it all. We just have a normal sailing and should hopefully get a normal cruise experience this time, so we'll see where things go. But of course, keep watching and check out the links for some of the other great events that took place today, along with the rest of the sailing.